Strand Podcast.
What's up, guys? This is Mike Beavers from The Theory, and you are listening to Alien Strand Podcast, the dopest UFO alien podcast out there. And if you want to find out about me, just go on YouTube and search UFOs over UFO or The Theory with Mike Beavers. Stay tuned, guys.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Alien Strand Podcast. I'm your host, Don Ledesma, and welcome to today's show. I'm glad to be back again. It's been a little bit, but I got some good stories today for you guys. I hope you guys are still listening to the shows and catching up to all the episodes we have out there. Well, we are out on number 67. Yeah. You know, I never thought I was going to get to 67. You know, when I first started this in 2019, you know, I said, well, I'll probably get 10 episodes. Lo and behold, here we are, number 67. Wow. But you know what? There's a lot of information out there, a lot of great stories out there, and I like to get these stories out to you guys. Got a lot of loyal listeners out there. You know, they just contact me all the time, and when the new podcast is coming out, and I know we've been delayed a little bit, but there's just been a lot of things going on, and, you know, with my work and personal work, and then my side work that I have with Ledge Productions, and, you know, and of course writing as well. So there's just been a lot of things happening all at the same time, and I'm trying to put this podcast out for you guys because I know you guys are waiting for it. You know, we're out there in 25, 26 platforms. You know, you can catch us on Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and alienstrand.com. Check us out there. You can check us out on Verbal now, VURBLE. I believe we're on Amazon now, so you can kind of, you know, you can catch the shows there. You know, iHeart Radio, you know, Deezer. We have all those, you know, Google Podcasts. Anything that you have a major platform on, we're on those platforms. And, you know, and I'm glad that we are able to get this information out to you guys, because we're on a bunch of countries out there just listening to the content from Alien Strand. Also, you know, you can always go to Alien Strand there on Facebook, so you can go check us out there, share the page if you like it, you know, comment on some of the things that we put out there, and, you know, and a lot of these things that we put out there, it's for you to decide, right? And everything that we do out there is for you to decide. We're not saying it's real. We're not saying to believe in it. We're just saying it's out there. It's the unknown. And we'd like for you to just, you know, figure out if it's real, if it's not, you know, comment on those, on those videos if you can, you know, even on the pictures as well, you know, and if there's a hoax, well, we'll be glad to get it out there and post that it was a hoax. So that way, when it gets shared on all these groups and platforms, that, you know, they'll be able to at least, you know, put the information, the truth out there that this is where it came from. I've seen so many photos that have been photoshopped, you know, and they look so real. You know, it's like it's hard to tell. We use these filters and all these applications on your phones now that you can have that will actually help you fix those, right? And to tell if it's photoshopped or not. A lot of times you can tell by the feathering around the object. You know, a lot of times the shadows are off, you know, or just the shadows in the wrong place, you know. So kind of take a look at those, download those special apps that you have out there, that can help you out on those spectrum analysis of a lot of these photos. And a lot of times you could just Google it, the photo, and then it has a number on there, and you can actually trace where that photo originally came from, and you'll see the original image, right? So a lot of people do that, so that way they know where that the image has not been altered in any kind of way, or if it has been altered, at least we know where it's coming from, right? And that's a good thing. I'm glad people are doing that too, because it kind of, on the Facebook page, I've had a couple of trolls on there, and a couple of people that aren't trolls, but they're kind of like, well, you're just trying to make people believe in these things, and this, this page is, I don't know, and it's a podcast page to begin with, because number one. Number two, we put the information out that comes out daily on all over the interweb, right? So whatever pops up, we look for it and we throw it out there, and so that way you guys can check it out as well. Now, you want to be the first ones to see it. If you want to be the first one to see it, go to alienstrand.com or actually Alien Strand there on Facebook, and you'll see it, anything that comes out daily, okay? Because I'm on top of these things all day long. Even when I'm at my regular job, I'm doing these things. So today's podcast, I wanted to talk about, species, right? And the only reason, I did that is because there's all different kinds of species out there. Of course, animals and of course we talk about the extraterrestrials as well. And we have Bigfoot, right? Sasquatch, Yeti, anything that pertains to this massive beast. I wanted to talk about that today. I do have a podcast on this as well, with an actual guest. Her name is Crystal. If you go back and to my podcast, you'll see it. Listen to that podcast, very good podcast that I have with her, and she had a couple of run-ins with a couple of these Sasquatches or Bigfoot, and she tells, I think, about 3 or 4 stories in there of her encounters from a child and to what she's experienced even today. So if you have a chance, go check that out. Today I'm just going to touch up, and today's podcast, I'm getting into the whole aspect of the myth, the sightings, where it probably came from, and I'm going to touch base on all of these subjects today, right? But I just want to make a quick announcement before you guys get into this podcast. So just don't forget, today's the 8th, August 8th, there's a new show on Netflix. It's going to be called Top Secret UFO Projects Declassified. That came out today. So you have a chance, go check that out on Netflix, and see what that's all about. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm throwing it out for you guys to maybe be the first ones to go check it out, okay? Also, Showtime is going to have one as well. It's called UFO Documentary, okay? And that's going to be a series. This was from J.J. Abrams and Glenn Zipper. So that comes out today. Okay, so if you have a chance, go to Netflix, and check out that Top Secret UFO Project Declassified. Check that out first, and then go to Showtime if you have it. Check out the UFO documentary series from J.J. Abrams. Okay, and let me know what you guys think of that. Of those 2 shows. A good popcorn day to check it out. But let's go ahead and get into this podcast today. So today's podcast is number 67, Species. And we're just going to get into this, aka Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti. So the definition is Sasquatch, wild man, large, hairy, human-like creature, believed by some people to exist in the northwestern U.S. and western Canada. It represents the North American counterpart of the Himalayan region of a mythical monster, abominable snowman. or Yeti. So that's pretty much the definition of Sasquatch. So there was a British explorer. His name was David Thompson. So he's credited for the first discovery of this wild man, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, in 1811. This is about 210 years ago. He spotted large footprints and then they started having visual sightings later in the years. That was in 1967, which was actually the one that was taped, which is called the Patterson, right? This was in 1967 by Roger Patterson film at Bluff Creek there in California. Now that footage is very well known all over the world, and they tried to debunk that over and over and over so many times. They're saying a man in a suit, they paid somebody, and then they're saying no, it's an actual real Sasquatch. By the way, it's walking. They've slowed it down. They've actually put it into 4K. They've noticed that it actually has breasts when it's walking, right? So they figured that it was a female. So they end up calling that Sasquatch Patty, because it took over the Patterson film, right? So that footage always, throws me for a loop every time I see it now, because there's just so many controversial stories on that film. But I'm going to tell you the sizes of this Bigfoot or Sasquatch. So they say that the Bigfoot sizes range from 6 foot to 15 foot. And this is in a standing position. Often, they start giving off some kind of foul smell. They say it moves undetected. And then it emits a high-pitched cry. Now, these are the sounds that you heard at the very beginning of this podcast. Are there actual recordings of a Bigfoot or Sasquatch? You could tell by the high-pitched screams, right? Their footprints are measured up to 24 inches in length and 8 inches in width. That is massive. So there was a scientist named Boris Horsneff suggested that Bigfoot may be a remnant of Neanderthals. Now, how many times have you thought that yourself? It's crossed my mind a couple of times, the way this creature looks. Has facial features of almost of a man. Large eyes, but deep, right? Totally black, though. And the U.S. has tallied over 23,000 Bigfoot sightings in total since the 1800s. So since the sightings began, they started documenting all of these sightings, right? And this is the actual tally of today, 2021. 23,000 sightings. It's a lot. In 1967, the Patterson film spans about 59.5 seconds. And even today, we still can't tell if it's real or not. And on that story, it happened on October 20th, 1967. So these two men were riding their horses through Bluff Creek in California. It was about 1 p.m. that day. With their horses, suddenly one of the horses kicks, right? They said there was a strange scent that filled the air. Very familiar, right? He said they spotted a creature on two legs about 100 feet away. They quickly dismounted the horses, and Patterson used his trusty Cine Kodak camera and captured this famous film. And it was on a 16 millimeter. Now, we've all seen this film. Is it real or is it a hoax? In Oregon, we have sightings there as well. Those began in 1904. Say there was sightings of a hairy wild man by settlers in the Sixes River area. In 1924, miners on the Mount St. Helens claimed to have been attacked by giant apes. Those were reported in the Oregon Pass. That's a pretty popular story. I read that one a few times, and that has popped up on my feeds, a couple of times, and it's actually in their books. So tribes in Oregon related to Bigfoot to an ancient tale of a wild man, right? Lurking near villages, left large tracks, described in Clara Pearson's Tales of Nahalam Tillamook. Some plateau tribes identify Bigfoot as a stick Indian. Say they're hostile creatures who stole salmon and confused people by whistling, causing them to be lost. Now, are those the whoop sounds that we hear? And are those what people describe of hearing today? These are tales of the natives that, talked about this giant wild man or beast that has been lurking out there for years, stealing their food. On most of these shows and things that we see today, you usually see them turning over the campsites, tearing into the ice chests, looking for food, right? Throwing rocks, banging against walls, on trailers, throwing small rocks to get your attention, almost to confuse you in a sense. And they also use large sticks or branches to bang against trees as to communicate. This is what we see today, how a lot of people are communicating with these mythical creatures that are out there, supposedly, right? The thing that makes it unmythical to me is that there's a lot of responses back from the forests. A lot of photos, some video. You know, it's kind of hard to tell on video because of the scale sometimes. The video is, this creature is probably too far away. They always try to scale this beast, how large it is. Let me tell you, this thing is massive. It's not like your typical large 6-foot man, lumberjack, let's just say. This thing is about 3 to 4 times larger than that. This giant has been described in earlier historical texts, right? I'm always looking at history. Because if you look at history way back, it's almost giving you a sense of an idea of what how they were trying to explain themselves in stories, right? So if you look at the Bible as a historical sense, you know, it was filled with Middle Eastern giants inside the Bible, right? We have the Book of Enoch, Nephilim. Those tribes that spawned the Amorites, right? They have Emnim, Ankim, who the Sumerians called the Anunnaki, the giants. In the days of Marco Polo, they wrote of encountering giants. In Zanzibar, they said these men who could carry 4 ordinary men. It's even in the Smithsonian files. So they have files of extinct genetically subspecies of Homo sapiens that were discovered a decade ago. And Denisova Cave in Siberia. And they call these people Denisovians, right? They lived about 50,000 to 300,000 years ago. Because these are Homo sapiens that we're talking about here. But large. And they're known to be very, very tall. And they say their descendants could have wandered into North America far west, says the scientist named Hugh Newman. He's a co-author of a book called Giants on the Record. So this scientist, or this gentleman that co-authored this book, he studies megalithic creatures and giants, structures, and tries to figure out what made them, right? And why they were so massive, why they were so huge. So Newman says that, they just been looking for in different eras in North America, right? He says, I have dates going back 10,000 years, right up to the 1900s, where giants have been witnessed. Newman has reports of giants up to 7 feet to 18 feet. But he thinks that it's about 14 feet is the largest one that's been reported. Imagine that, 14 feet tall. And he has studied giant skeletons. There was one that they found, said it was like a red-haired clan. These skeletons were huge that they found. So that is basically a little bit of a rundown of, a deeper historical sense of what these creatures or what this Sasquatch or Homo sapien could actually be out there, right? Or what it is, maybe. So there's some sightings in Kentucky as well. On February 8th, 2015, 2:30 p.m. in Woodford County. My mother was taking her daughter to a play date on the southern part of the county on the riverside. The daughter said she saw a gorilla, but bigger. It was standing by the creek. She said it was blackish gray. Long arms like a gorilla, but taller. She said it had its back towards her. Her daughter's about 8 years old, so she's explaining exactly what she saw. Later, she says that this one stood about 10 feet tall. It had broad shoulders. And hands almost lower than its knees. That was actually reported. There's another report on November 2011 at 5 p.m. on Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. While deer hunting, this gentleman says, I saw two creatures run like a fast jog across an open field. And they were looking behind their shoulders intermittently. One was larger, mostly black. One was smaller, blonde-colored. He says like a coyote-colored. They disappeared in the woods. He says, I pulled my scope out to locate them. And all I could make out was the movements. He says, I waited 10 to 15 minutes. This was getting dark now. He says, I went back to the house for a better flashlight and my gun. I returned to the field and the pond at the edge of the woods, but I found nothing. And was afraid to actually enter the woods. So this guy actually saw two of them run by him while deer hunting. But it spooked him so bad that he still went back to investigate, but he was a little afraid to even go back there again. This guy's name was Sam. In a deeper conversation with Sam, he says the encounter lasted about 10 to 20 seconds. He described the creature as extremely long arms, covered in head to toe with hair. He says it had a thick trunk, barrel-chested, huge, facial features. He says it had inset eyes. So the eyes were deep socketed, but deep inside the skull. He says they were about 6.5 feet tall to 8 foot. He says they kind of glided as they ran, very smooth. He said they didn't have much of a neck. And their heads were like they had hoodies on, a little pointy on top. He says the bottom of the feet were kind of like ours, but tan and dirty color. So that was his detailed view of what he saw and how he explained it. Were those two creatures that he saw Sasquatch? We have another story. This happened on 7/28/2011. Pam is the mother, and Frances is the daughter. Happened about 11:30 p.m. The mother and daughter were driving from Versailles to Lawrenceburg late that evening. As their vehicle rounded the corner, Mother noticed a large, hairy, bipedal creature standing on the right side of the road as the headlights caught the figure standing motionless. The creature then darted across a two-lane road. It took about 3 steps to cross the road. When I asked Pam to describe how it ran, she said it glided across the road very fast. It ran like a man on 2 legs. The arms hung low by the side. The only thing she did not notice, the over-exaggerated arm swing. Pam, she stressed over and over how ugly and scary it appeared. She says, I hope to never see it again. And I definitely don't want to go looking for it. It looked like a werewolf. Like what you would see in movies. She says, we feared for our lives because it was so massive. As if it would have charged at their van. It would have killed us. When they asked to describe the face, said it was like a man's face except covered with long black hair which needed to be combed or cut out. Long hair covered the entire face except the eyes and the nose. It did have large eyebrows, meaning pronounced brow. The eyes did not shine or glow. The nose was kind of like a man's, but a little bit wider. The little amount of skin around the eyes and the nose appeared to be dark and black. It stood about 7 feet tall, had wide shoulders, and it was completely covered in long black hair, unmanaged hair. The hair was dull, had no shine to it. No details on the hands. The feet, notice that they were covered with hair as well. She said the entire sighting lasted over a minute. Frances also said it looked like a werewolf. In the movie, it looked like half man, half animal. Since the windows were down in the van, when we drove by it, the spot where it had crossed, I could hear it crashing through the woods, and they did notice a musty odor. So, these two women had a, mother-daughter. had quite an encounter there, and they both saw it. Sometimes it's hard to explain it, and to make out of what you see, how it looks. Some people can't describe exactly what it is, but they described it more of a werewolf, right? Half man, half wolf or animal. So I want you guys to hear this. Two witnesses, as they both, husband and wife, saw a Bigfoot in their actual property. I have a recording of them, and I'd like you guys to hear it. So here we go.
It was around 5 a.m. in May of 2005, and I came out to the driveway. I was walking to catch the school bus, and I stopped in the driveway because I smelled something that was disgusting. It smelled like sulfur almost, or dead chicken, like rotten chicken. And I looked down the driveway and I heard and saw something coming up the hill, and I thought it was a person at first. It was like 7 foot tall, and then I thought it was a bear. I didn't know what it was. It was up on 2 legs, and the legs were more like dog legs. It had pointed ears on top of its head, had yellow eyes, and when it was walking across the driveway, it stopped when I gasped and looked at me, and that lasted for about 5 to 10 seconds, and had a sort of dog snout and hair all over its body. Had long fingers and fingernails. It was built like a man that works out a lot. And it kind of snorted or growled at me like a dog would, and then jumped. How far would you say that is? Like 6 foot from the driveway? About 6 foot with a leap, and then took off running in the field towards the area where we saw those caves at. And then I stayed there in the spot I was in and listened to it until I couldn't hear it running anymore, and then I took off running to the bus.
Okay, it was late at night. Myself and my wife was home. We was the only ones that were here. We'd been inside most of the night, just kind of having downtime. I hadn't been outside probably in between 10 and midnight. I heard a thump up against the side of the house, like a cat going crazy like something had hurt it. And then we have probably 4 dogs in a kennel outside, and they just started going crazy. And I ran outside, grabbed a flashlight, and did a scan like I do a lot of times when the dogs go crazy, just looking for whatever it is that's disturbing them. Looked across the backyard and caught a set of eyes looking back. They was whitish, yellowish, and standing behind a tree stump. I'm 5'10", the stump's taller than I am. Whatever it was looking up over the stump back at us, probably from about 80 yards away, or not 80, but 40. And it would sit there and it would move up and down. When we'd look at it, I'd take a flashlight, tap it against the side of the house. When I would do that, it would raise up and look. It would go back down. Then it would look beside the tree. Just whatever it was big. We looked at it through binoculars and you could tell it was a big head, whatever it was. The eyes were far apart.
So that's their stories of what they both witnessed that day. Now, there's so many sightings of this Sasquatch or Bigfoot that just the way that people explain what they see, it almost sounds like there are two different types, right? In a sense. Some see them with yellow eyes. Some see them with black eyes. And this is what I've noticed by going through a lot of these Bigfoot groups, and I go through them and I do a lot of reading on what people have witnessed, right? The different grunts, the sounds of these species of what they are. So I'm going to give you another recording of a Bigfoot that was recorded out by a river, and they said it was a large male with the female Bigfoot, like it was trying to communicate with the Bigfoot, with each other in a sense, like a husband and wife were talking. These two people were standing there recording them, and here is the recording.
There's two of them across the creek at the big rocks. It's a hard act to follow.
He sounds like he talks to others and they talk to each other.
Yeah.
Now that was strange. The vocalizations of it trying to communicate. So I had downloaded a map of all of the sightings that were spotted in the United States since, the very 1800s. And this gentleman made a map of every single sighting. And I am going to put this up on the Facebook website there, so you could see the map of what it looks like today of all the sightings and where this creature has been sighted. And by God, it's all over. So if you kind of think about it in like us as a human species, how we multiply, we just get larger and larger through the years. This species is doing the same thing. It's multiplying. How did it get here? Where did it start originally? A lot of people think that these Bigfoot-Sasquach are probably extraterrestrial because they disappear as fast as they show up. You'd figure something that massive you would hear it or kind of see it, right? They have a good camouflage. They blend in very well. But they're hunters. So if you really think about it, these things are hunters because they hunt. They're always in large deer, elk, anywhere there's populated game. They're usually by rivers, water, right? So most humans are the same way. What do they say when you get lost in the woods? Find yourself the nearest water, river, or stream, follow it, and you'll find people, right? So why not a Bigfoot or Sasquatch do the same thing? They need it. They need a drink as well as we do. So if you think about it in that sense, it does make sense of what's out there. Where they possibly came from. And why haven't they learned to communicate just yet with, in other words, speech, dialogue, right? I mean, is there something wrong with their tongue? Is it like if it's too huge where they can't speak? So they have to make these noises and grunts and howls in order to communicate. It's a possibility. A lot of this data, you just go to Earth Data at daac.ornl.gov. Search Bigfoot. And they have a few databases there from 2006 and 2012. It's a NASA site. So you'll see that data that they have there as well on Bigfoot. NASA, Bigfoot, hello. A lot of my information that I got today was from kybigfoot.com. This is Kentucky. They have reports, pics, videos, and audio. You can also submit a report if you're in that area. If you dig deep enough, you can find a lot of information on this species that's out there. And you can check it out for yourself. Always dig like I do. I dig and dig and dig. And I see the similarities of everything because I always think of everything as a large puzzle, right? And we're just trying to put these things together. Here at Alien Strand, we talk about aliens. Yes, probably about 90% of the time. But what about Bigfoot? What about the unknown? Dogman, they have that as well. Could this be mixed or confused with the Dogman myth as well? These are just more details that you have to look for out there. And always here at Alien Strand, anywhere on Alien Strand, it's up to you to decide if it's real or it's not. We put the facts out there for you. We do all the hard work for you. I did. So that way you can, just kind of make a determination on for yourself. And before you make a comment on there, just kind of look at the big picture. Kind of analyze it first. And here at Alien Strand, we appreciate each and every one of you for listening today. You can catch us on 24-25 platforms. And I hope you really enjoyed today's podcast, as I did. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. I decided to throw it out to you guys today, so I hope you guys really enjoyed this podcast today, because it had a lot of deep information that needed to be heard and seen out there, right? And I love these podcasts. I love doing these podcasts. And I'm glad you guys are listening. So if you can, share it. Go to iHeartRadio, Spotify, click a heart there, share it with your friends. If you really enjoyed this podcast, click back to all my other podcasts. If you have a chance, go back and listen to those as well. A lot of information there for you guys. I put that out for you guys so that way, gives you a little bit of content out there. Don't forget about those 2 new documentaries that came out today, August the 8th. So check those out on Netflix and on Showtime, right? No, they're not paying me for that. So I just like to put the information out there. Everything we do here on Alien Strand, we do not get paid for. We do it for free for you guys. We keep it free for you guys. So that way you guys can have some great content, a lot of information out there, a lot of information to share, and I enjoy it. I enjoy it very much. And again, thank you for listening to Alien Strand Podcast. We're on many, many countries out there listening and sharing. So if you like this podcast today, give me a thumbs up, share it, leave some comments there. follow us on Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and alienstrand.com. Check us out there. If you want to be on the show, you can call us at 361-245-8000. Again, that's 361-245-8000. You want to be on the show? You got a story, Bigfoot encounter, alien encounter, an abduction? Give me a call. Or you just go to Facebook page, hit that call now button. It'll call me directly to my cell phone. All right? But until then, you guys have yourselves a good day. Have yourselves a good evening. And have yourselves a good night.
This episode is brought to you by Let's Productions. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn. See you there.